tears are in your eyes. Come on and come to me now. And don't be ashamed to cry. Let me see you through. 'Cause I've seen the dark side too. When the night falls on you, you don't know what to do. Nothing you'd confess could make me love you less. I'll stand by you. I'll stand by you. Won't let nobody hurt you. I'll stand by you. So if you're mad, get mad. Don't hold it all inside. Come on and talk to me now. And hey, what you got to hide? I get angry too. Well, I'm a lot like you. When you're standing at the crossroads and don't know what path to choose, let me come along. 'Cause even if you're wrong, I'll stand by you. I'll stand by you. Won't let nobody hurt you. I'll stand by you. Take me in into your darkest hour, and I'll never desert you. I'll stand by you. Feeling all alone, you're wandering on your own. I'll stand by you. I'll stand by you. Won't let nobody hurt you. I'll stand by you.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Alan Jenkins, and I serve as President-elect on the Board of Trustees of this Unitarian Universalist Church of Spartanburg. Welcome, everyone, whether you're joining us in person or online. You are valued, you are loved, and we are delighted to have you here with us this morning. If you're a visitor, thanks for joining us. If you're joining us at home, am I not on? Oh, thank you. I never knew how to point this thing at me. It's actually a blessing because it's better if people can't hear me.
Yeah, probably not.
If you're a visitor with us this morning, thanks for joining us. If you're doing so from home, you can fill out an online visitors form by going to the uucs.org website and clicking on Visitors, Friends, and Members. The form is located on the top of that webpage. If you're visiting during today's special outdoor service, come say hey to me. I'd love to meet you. Among today's announcements is an unfortunate bit of news. Due to COVID-19, the mountain retreat scheduled for Halloween weekend this year has been postponed. More details will follow. Please stay tuned for more. A bit of happy news. Save the date. The annual UUCS auction will be held in person on November 20th from 3 p.m. to 6 p.m. in the church parking lot to maximize safety. There's more details to come on that, so please stay tuned. Did I get that right, Lee? All right. Pardon our dust. The city has approved the engineering drawings for our new elevator, and this Tuesday, engineers, according to Fred, will bring in a giant machine with which they will drill a 24-inch hole through 14 inches of steel-reinforced concrete. That's fun to say right there. These are part of modifications to the elevator pit downstairs that will allow for construction of the elevator shaft to begin in October. Later in October, barricades will be erected in the foyer as construction workers rip out walls and floors to continue that elevator shaft work. So be careful. Because of manufacturing delays, however, the elevator equipment is not scheduled to arrive until the middle of January. We have high hopes that a fully finished, polished elevator will be operational by the end of February. And of course, all of this has to be taken with some grains of salt because of the aforementioned delays in production and what have you. The construction workers will have their hands full, but we've got some work to do on our side as well. Due to those delays, equipment shortages, and skyrocketing costs driven by the pandemic, our estimated price tag has risen to approximately $169,000. I know, right? About $35,000 more than we have currently raised. The board would like to cover this difference through fundraising. I'd like to encourage you, if you are able and moved, to contribute to the elevator fund. You can do so by visiting www.uucs.org/fundraising. Help us reach the top floor on our elevator fundraising efforts, and also don't forget to be careful in the foyer as construction becomes a lot more visible. Thank you again for the many ways that you serve your church, your family, and your community. On behalf of the UUCS Board of Trustees, thank you for being a part of our congregation today.
Good morning. Thank you all for being here this morning. Yeah, Jinx, thank you. There's so much that's happening. Alan was just talking about the elevator and this hole that's about to be drilled through the floor. This, just on the cusp of the weekend, an email went out. We need to find the key to lock the door to the worship closet because there's about to be this hole in the floor. Which I took that message to mean it doesn't matter how much caution tape we put up or how many tables and other barricades we put in front of that door. Somebody in this group is going to deviate from the assigned path and try to go through it. And then we'll have UU bungee jumping. Please don't go through that door. You can talk to the elevator guy. He's married to the auction chief. So much happening. You know, it's overcast today. If the sky's open, then we will all hustle inside and help our AV team get equipment inside. We'll reconvene there. But you know, prior to coming this morning, I got messages from a lot of folks. And the messages were not, is the outdoor service canceled? It was, are we going to go inside? Where are we going to be this morning? And you know what I hear from that is not, are we going to come? But how are we going to come? Yesterday morning, we had an event at the park that's right at the bottom of the hill here on South Converse Street. A bunch of us showed up. It was to dedicate one of the little free libraries that our social justice team has been a part of building, and this one in relationship and partnership with the South Converse Neighborhood Association. It was a fabulous event. It was wonderful. And what we have learned is not just that we put up a little free library in the park in the South Converse neighborhood, but that project fits within decades, if not more than decades, of concerted literacy work in this neighborhood by leaders who far predate us and who have set a standard for nurturing children and educating children in this neighborhood. And so it's not that we're coming in with this wonderful thing from the outside, but we are stepping into a current that is much bigger than ourselves, much larger than ourselves, and a really powerful affirmation of the partnership that we've tried to build with the leadership of this community. It was a wonderful event. And I know for a fact that many of the people that were there had already had meetings that morning. I have heard about them. And then after it was over, folks came here to get ready for a celebration of life for Caro Dempsey. And in the course of that service for Caro, A song continually was mentioned that Caro's famous for showing up at a coffee house, scantily clad and performing, something we were not prepared at all to offer in her service. And so there I stood empty-handed, not offering the key song to Caro's wonderful, notorious life. And two of our members leapt up to the microphone and pulled out Spotify on their phone and started playing Cabaret. Life is a cabaret. It was wonderful. Where one of us falls short and can't make the pieces happen, me in this case, as in many others, others stepped in. So wonderful. Just on Friday night, almost at 10 o'clock in the evening, a series of text messages started to move about a person beloved in this community, all the way on the opposite side of the state, who had been hospitalized. And what could we do to support them at all that distance? And the messages all through the night and into the next day were, may I do this, may I do that, may I do this. Now, y'all, that is less than 48 hours in the life of this church, spanning over the weekend when we're supposed to be resting. There's so much that's happening. There's so much energy moving and projects that are developing. And thoughtfulness, not just about what we can do, but how to do it so that we do it in partnership with people, with real compassion and real love, real listening. Not just assuming that we know what to do or that we're the leaders. Not that, but trying to do it in relationship. It's so exciting, all this movement. What could be more exciting than bungee jumping in the middle of your own sanctuary, right? It's so exciting. Don't do it. It's so exciting. I love it. I love it. And I love where it's coming from. And when this happens, as we know, that is the very moment when we are most prone to run afoul of each other. In our energy and excitement, to rush ahead too quickly. You can point all the fingers at me if you want. Notorious for that. To just get tangled up with each other. To not communicate well. To do the opposite of what we meant. It's so easy. In the life of a congregation, in the life of a couple, the life of a family, the life of a business, just when things are really moving, to be the very ones that trip our own selves up. So here we are in that same weekend of so much amazing energy, so many things happening in this beautiful sacred grove, and rain that so far has held off for us to cool us down but not to send us inside yet, and the birds singing all around us, and our commitment to show up for each other here in person or virtually, however we can do it. And all of this energy and busyness, let's take a moment to just be here and to reset, to find that source of energy again, whatever name we give it, so we can really be a team and reconnect when we run afoul and find a way forward together. Because there is a whole hell of a lot that we can do. Let's be quiet for just a moment together. thank you all so much for the beauty that we can create here.
I'm Clemson, and I have the privilege of serving as your worship leader this morning. And our chalice lighter this morning is Miss Martha Jenkins. So today, we continue listening. And our first opportunity to listen comes from Thich Nhat Hanh. And I learned it was Tick, not Thich, thanks to Scott's expertise and knowledge this morning. So Scott, thank you for that. Thich Nhat Hanh was an ordained monk at 16 in Vietnam. He envisioned a kind of engaged Buddhism that could respond directly to the needs of society. He was a prominent teacher and social activist in his home country before finding himself exiled for calling for peace. He's a friend of Dr. Martin Luther King, and he's featured on the cover of the Order of Worship this morning. And his teachings have impacted politicians, business leaders, thinkers, thought leaders from around the world. So this morning, let's listen to the words of an engaged Buddhist, Thich Nhat Hanh. He writes, "Deep listening is the kind of listening that can help relieve the suffering of another person. You can call it compassionate listening. You listen with only one purpose, to help him or her empty his heart. Even if he says things that are full of wrong perceptions, full of bitterness, you are still capable of continuing to listen with compassion. Because you know that listening like that, you give that person a chance to suffer less. If you want to help him correct his perception, wait for another time. For now, don't interrupt. Don't argue. If you do, he loses his chance. You just listen with compassion and help him to suffer less. 1 hour like that can bring transformation and healing."
Though I may speak with bravest fire and have the gifts to all inspire, and have not love, my words are vain as sounding brass and hopeless gain. Though I may give all I possess, and striving so my love profess, but be not give my love within, the prophet soon turns strangely thin. Come, Spirit, come, our hearts control, our spirits long to be made whole. Let inward love guide every deed. By this we worship and are free.
So in the Quaker faith tradition, there's a saying that you speak when the Spirit moves you. Well, in our tradition here at UUSC, we greet because the Spirit moves us. And as the Spirit moves you to greet others, please keep in mind social distancing and the needs of the people you are approaching. Please feel free to get up, greet your neighbor, offer a fist bump, elbow bump, head nod, or even as we learned from our young speaker last week, the Vulcan hand salute. Please share that and listen to the person that you're greeting. If you are online, please feel free to use whatever technology you are comfortable with and send a note of greetings out to someone you want to connect with. And when Sydney begins playing, know that the spirit of greeting is starting to leave us and that it's time to please be seated to listen and share with our covenant. Let's greet each other now.
I don't really feel like getting up. I was going to, but I'm sort of... Huh? Exactly. Good grief. I'm pretty parked right here. This is fun. Mm-hmm.
All right.
I normally would get up and walk around, but I just can't be. Yeah, I worked in the morning and then I played last night at Draymar. So, it's a lot. She's parked up here with me. Yeah, I really do. I have no idea. It does. I need bubble wrap. Yes, yeah. Mhm. Yeah, he does. I like him. I'm gonna play. Huh? Well, you know. This makes me cry too because I'm so congested. So congested. Thank you. I love the song. Those are cute. Those are cute.
As we gather to say our covenant, let's use this time to listen to the words of our living promise to each other. We are saying this together, listening as we speak to those around us. And as we make this promise to each other, I'm going to speak this rather slowly today, so we might listen and savor every word and meaning of the covenant we covenant together. We are a people of faith and hope. Together, we covenant to strive to become our better selves, to honor both the critical mind and the generous heart, to prove that diversity need not mean divisiveness, and to respond to systems of violence and oppression with the power of a love beyond belief. I love the action in our covenant. There's a lot of great verbs in that covenant. And now it's time to put the covenant to work. And we're going to multitask. And as the Spirit moves you, we're going to ask you to come forward and drop a rock or a shell into the rippling bowl. We know that the physical action of gratitude helps us to be resilient, and the acceptance of a sorrow helps us to heal. Your actions encourage both. For our friends online, I'm going to drop in 2 shells, one for each emotion, and for you. And while you're coming forward, we welcome you to share your resources, placing them in the offering plate. And know that we're grateful for your support of the services of the church. And also, like Scott said earlier, we are part of a larger community, sharing with others as well as with ourselves. And so our Share the Plate today will go to Total Ministries, a group here in Spartanburg offering assistance to those less fortunate. Please come forward and let's share our happiness, our sorrow, and our resources together.
Join me in silence. We've been reflecting on the importance of listening, how much it matters to stop and to listen, to really hear someone when they're speaking with us. And not just to hear their words, but to connect with them, to be with them. And then, when we have listened, to try to listen again, because it is very possible to give our full attention to someone, to really connect with them, and to completely miss what they're trying to tell us. I would imagine that you know what I'm talking about. It's a hallmark of my own life. And when we have listened, and then when we listen again, the time comes for us to speak, to respond, and to be in communication, in dialogue with the person with whom we're sharing that space. When we have stopped to listen, and to listen again, what we say, the way that we speak, and what we speak can be very, very different than what our first response might have been when the conversation started. It changes us to listen. Almost a decade ago now, I was at a conference. I was one of a whole lineup of speakers. Most of the speakers were slated to speak for an hour. I was not, but you know me, and so, anyway. It was a full-day conference. All these folks come in from all over the country, PhDs and MDs and all these people sharing their expertise, the most boring PowerPoint presentations you can imagine, really good donuts and coffee, all that stuff that goes with conferences, right? And in the middle of it, I got up to speak. And I shared what I had to share, and then I sat back down. And I thought, well, I did a good job. That was good. They clapped. And then a woman got up to speak right after me. She spoke for only 3 minutes. Everybody else going for an hour strong, right? She spoke for 3 minutes. And I watched that room of 450 people Professionals of all kinds, law enforcement, medical professionals, solicitors, all kinds of folks, social workers, room full of people who were coming and going to get their donuts and coffee while other people were presenting, right? That's kind of how you vote on what's good or not. Do you get up to go to the bathroom and eat something? Watched the whole room stop. Everybody turned around. The whole place got quiet. No side conversations for 3 minutes. Everyone listening to this woman speak. Speaking a poem. She's a poet. The whole room completely stopped. I have no idea what all those presenters talked about that day. I cannot remember what any of them said, but I remember what she said. And so when it was over, I approached her and I said, that was amazing. The whole room just stopped for what you did in that 3 minutes. I work at a church. There's another church, not this one. And there's a little chapel there. It's a beautiful space. Would you come and do a poetry performance in that space? And she looked at me real long. I'm this go-get-em white guy, preacher type. And she's very different than me. Right? It's a black woman, social worker, a poet. Sees a lot different than I see. And she said, well, let's talk about that. And I said, sure, let's grab a cup of coffee, we'll talk about it. I'd love for us to do this, right? Let's do it. We met and talked off and on for 6 months. Why is it that you want to do this? What is it that you want to do? What's going on in the church that makes you want to do this? What do you perceive going on in the community that makes you want to do this? And me sharing the ideas and the thought and the energy. And then shifting from her asking me questions to me asking her. Tell me what you're seeing. Tell me what you're thinking. What do you think might work here? I would still love to do this, but I hear your hesitation. What would work better? 6 months of listening. Now, I'm not the fastest person, as some of you painfully know. When I get behind an idea, I can get real revved up. But I tend to slow down. But 6 months for a project? That would usually just kill the project, right? Dead in the water. 6 months of listening and listening again and trying to hear, how might this work? What would be good here? After 6 months, we agreed that she would come and do a poetry performance in that space. And different than my first words on that day at the conference 6 months before, that she would not come alone. She would come with a team, other people to perform with her, so that she wasn't alone in that space. Multiple people working together. And they wouldn't just stand there and perform in the fishbowl of that space for whoever wanted to come and spectate, but that following the poetry there would be conversation, dialogue, discussion, that they would prompt and that everyone would be asked to participate in. Now that was very different than the original idea. And I didn't quite know how all of that would work. How would we muster enough people to come into the space to merit a whole team coming? And would people step up to the challenge of dialogue? You can see what was happening. The risk was beginning to be shared. It wasn't just would she come and perform, but could we also perform? Could we connect? Something was being asked of everyone. All that preparation, all that listening to arrive at the point of finally speaking. In November 2013, on the first Monday of the month, we gathered 20 people in the space. We had it slated for an hour, and it went to an hour and a half. People didn't want to stop. They loved the poetry. It was so powerful, and they really got into the conversation. Finally, we had to call it off because we had to shut the building down. So we said, let's do that again next month. First Monday in December 2013, we gathered 40 people showed up. Some of us didn't know who these people were. They just heard about what we were doing. It went for 2 hours. We had to shut it down again. Right? December is a busy month. We got to leave. Let's do it a third time because it's gone so well. January 2013, first Monday of the month, close to the new year, after the holidays, everybody's trying to get back into the swing of things. Shouldn't work at all. 60 people show up. An entire graduate school class from a local college comes as part of their curriculum for the semester. And how did they find out about that? And then integrated into their curriculum at the start of the semester in January? Something had moved. And 8 years later, that organization continues to meet every month on the first Monday of the month and holds 5 other free events every month open to the community of poetry and dialogue. There's another one tomorrow night if you want to come. And travels, first physically and now virtually, all over the country doing this. Trainings and dialogues everywhere. It's this organization I've shared with you about, Speaking Down Barriers. That organization outwardly does all of that work. Way, way different than what we had initially proposed. Come and do a poetry performance in a chapel. Stopping to listen and to hear the questions and the anxiety. To slow down and to speak truth with one another. I'm anxious about this. I'm worried about this. This could work, but maybe not this. What if we did it this way? For 6 months. Should kill a project. But in this case, the thing has gone so far beyond the original idea. And not just outwardly. I left my job for that organization. I sold my house. Where I live is not where I lived when we started. The church that I serve is not the church that I served then. The conversations at my dinner table with my children and my wife, not the same conversations we were having 8 years ago. And that's just my life. Other folks who are part of our team and part of our work, they have awakened to different sexual orientations. They have changed jobs. Their politics have shifted. I won't say in which direction, but they've tended to move from one direction to another. People have changed their religious affiliations and their spiritualities because of the depth of engagement with community and poetry and with other human beings. Way different than will you come and do some poems in our chapel. So here's the big warning. When we choose to listen and listen again, and then to speak truth with each other, truth and love, there is a high risk that we are not going to be the same people that we started out as. When we listen, it's not just about being nice, although it is nice. And it's not just about being good, although I would definitely argue that it is good. It's not just about designing better projects, although my experience is they tend to get way, way better. It's about changing. Changing in relationship and changing ourselves. And I think that change, that risk of transformation, is one of the big reasons that people choose not to listen. Because if we really tuned into each other and then had the courage to speak truth and love with each other, we will not be the same people that we started out as. First, we listen. Just to connect and to try to hear. And then we listen again We risk our own egos and pride. I have ample of both. We risk being humble to say this to me again. What did I miss? Where did I hear one thing and you heard another? You meant another. We listen and we listen again. And when it comes time to speak, we muster the courage as best we can to speak the plain truth in love. Because what we've built is a connection with this other person. However tense or fraught, however much disagreement there may be, we're not just swapping words and ideas, we're not just exchanging information. We are connecting and in relationship. And we owe them the truth. And we owe them their dignity. Now, there are a lot of people in the world who are happy to speak the truth. And they speak it like knives. There seems to be a kind of joy in inflicting pain by speaking the truth. That's not what I'm talking about. That's truth for the sake of power, to hurt somebody else, to diminish somebody else, by putting them down to elevate ourselves. It doesn't really matter how honest you are when you do that. You're inflicting pain. You're breaking the relationship. It's not what I'm talking about. And there are a lot of folks who cushion everything they say in so much kindness that it's sort of nauseating. That the truth sort of disappears into sweetness or gentleness. Now, I'm all about being gentle and sweet. Please be gentle and sweet with me. But what good is that if it's false? To be so caring towards someone that we can't tell them the truth and they can't see their lives more clearly and adapt. This balance is hard. We see how hard it is, right? We see sappy shows on TV and we see brutal shows on TV. And they both get amazing ratings and they are terrible to watch, right? All those news commentators that are paid millions of dollars to just scream at each other and to run our democracy into the ground. And all of those Hallmark movies, I won't even characterize how bad they are, right? It's not even real life, right? We're here for reality, to live at the heart of life. And that doesn't just happen. It's something we have to create with each other. And we can do that hard work, even if it's not modeled well around us, to speak as clearly as possible the truth. I'm concerned about this. I'm not sure about this. This causes me pause. You may not have heard me. Let me say this again. All in a context of care. Because what we're trying to build is not just who's got the right information and who can win the argument, but how can we be a better team than we started out? How can we really make this work? I mean, wouldn't that be a great thing for us to do as a democracy? To figure out how to make it work instead of who's going to win? It would be nice to find that. Right? It would be really nice to find that. We listen. And we listen again. And when it is time to speak, we can register a few ways to speak. The first that often comes up for me is defensiveness. You didn't understand me. Let me correct your wrong view. Let me say again more eloquently what I failed to say so well before, right? The pushback. And that almost always is just a push away. It achieves very little. So for me anyway, you'll have to check yourself. For me anyway, I have to actively register the defensiveness and all the ego and drive that's behind it. And just set that to the side. Because it's just going to ruin the thing that I want. The thing that I think needs to happen. However correct my information may be or noble my vision may be, If what I come back with is, let me tell you, then I'm the one who's pulling us off the rails. Take that defensiveness and just set it to the side. And when we speak, the first thing we can choose is not to speak information, but more questions. A kind of speaking that's still listening. So we won't rush from listening to response. Questions like, can you explore this with me a little further? Will you share with me how you see that playing out? What do you think would work in this case? Let me just trouble that a little bit, but I want to hear your response to it. What do you think? Risking our own idea to hear the idea of the other person filled out more. Now, while we listen, we may think, oh my Lord, I pray we don't ever do what's being shared here. Right? It doesn't mean that the other person is going to be right. It's okay for them not to be right. It's okay for us both to not be right. What matters is the team, the connection. And then when the questions have arrived at a point, we may find ourselves invited to share ideas. Well, what do you think? Invited ourselves to share our thoughts. What do you see? Our own visions and ideas summoned. And we should speak them as plainly as we can. I think this, maybe this. What if we try this? This is the reason that I feel this so strongly or think this so strongly. What we're creating when we do that is a dialogue where we're asking each other questions and sharing our ideas, all rooted in listening and connection, so that actually whatever the project we're working on or the question we're working on, in large part, doesn't have to be resolved in that conversation. It can be something that, the large part of which, continues on, unfinished. That it evolves. And when we developed the idea of speaking down barriers, it wasn't even called speaking down barriers. We had no idea that it was going to go to a second month, much less 8 years. These things can develop over time when we allow them. That in conversation and dialogue, we find the one or two things that do need some decision, and we make that decision. We have the courage to make it together. But we allow the other things to keep growing and maturing so that we have more information. I've watched our board over the last 4 years develop this skill magnificently, where we spend enough time talking, sometimes more than any of us want. We get real hungry on those Wednesday nights, where we arrive at the point of saying, we do need to decide about this, but the rest of it, let's just let it keep playing out a little bit and see. And it's remarkable the life that that's given to some of our decisions. It's beautiful. Listen and listen again, and then when we speak, to speak asking questions and telling the truth and allowing the relationship to extend beyond that one conversation into a dialogue that continues on. It's ongoing. Dr. King, in 1966, was leading the civil rights movement. They had goals. They were pushing against the structures of our society. They were naming injustice at its deep roots, centuries of injustice, 500 years of exploitation and violence. He only had 2 years to live. And at a conference in Chicago, with his speeches written and the plans made, the goals set, a young Buddhist monk asked to meet with him for just a few minutes. And Martin Luther King Jr. and Thich Nhat Hanh, two of the greatest spiritual leaders of the 20th century, met for only a few minutes. And Thich Nhat Hanh shared with Dr. King what was happening in Vietnam. Beyond the headlines, beyond the news anchors, beyond Dr. King's own incisive and brilliant understanding, to share again, to listen again, to be in dialogue about what was happening to the people on the ground, caught in between the two conflicting parties. And Dr. King was so moved by the humanity of that short dialogue, that brief conversation, that he began to speak out against the Vietnam War. Not against soldiers, certainly not against civilians, but against the global powers converging to destroy the lives of a whole people. He was harshly criticized by his colleagues for that. They felt like he was going to lose his path, lose his perspective, get pulled off course by speaking out against Vietnam. Martin, stay on topic. But he said the civil rights movement includes this. It is about all of this structural violence. And his message expanded. He began to speak about what he called the giant triplets of U.S. society. Now just see if these are familiar to you. He named them. Militarism, a country that is addicted to being at war, always at war, and militarizing itself domestically as well. Militarism, materialism run out of control. I mean, all those news anchors are for is the commercials. It's not even about them. Militarism, materialism, and racism. And if that's not a prophetic word that resounds across the decades, I don't know what is. Describes our world exactly as it is today. When we listen, and listen again, and risk being changed by what we hear, and then have the courage to speak the truth in love, which is what nonviolence is. It's not about winning. It's about the transformation of everyone involved. We create a world that is radically different from where we started. We name the deep truth of the world and empower one another to make it different. Just look at this place. A couple of decades ago, UUCS was not known as a place that was welcoming and affirming of all sexual orientations and genders. That wasn't the initial culture here. It wasn't what we knew to be. And it took a lot of truth-telling and love, a lot of listening and listening again and dialogue for us to find that way. If I understand the history correctly, and I would appreciate truth and love if I get this wrong, the first time the congregation decided to vote on becoming a welcoming congregation, the vote failed. But look at who we are today. Look at the congregation that originated the Pride March in Spartanburg for the whole upstate. Look at the way we proclaim without hesitation that we are welcoming and affirming of every life. LGBTQIA+, every life. And think of how that has changed us all. Certainly has changed the conversations that happen at my dinner table with my children. Listening is a high-risk endeavor. More dangerous than bungee jumping at the UU. Because if we listen, and listen again, and from what we hear have the courage to speak truth in love, to speak the truth militarism. To speak the truth, and to genuinely care for the person with whom we speak it. We will not stay the same. and neither will this world that needs so badly to change. Listen to each other.
Started out as a whisper, turned into a scream, made a beautiful noise, shoulder to shoulder, marching in the street. When you're all alone, it's a quiet breeze, but when you band together, it's a choir of thunder and rain. Now we have a choice, 'cause I have a voice. I'm not living to die. Don't stand in a wasteland, look me in the eye. Stop living a lie and stand up next to me. You gotta put one foot in front of the other with a hand in hand, holding on to each other. Go on and rejoice, 'cause you have a voice. It is loud and it is clear. It's stronger than your fear. It's believing you belong and calling out the wrong. From the silence of my sister to the violence of my brother, we can rage against the river, feel the pain of another. I have a voice, I have a voice, and I let it speak for the ones who aren't yet running free. It's killing me. No one's saying what we need to hear, and I will not let silence win. When I see all the pain our people are in, there's no other choice, 'cause I have a voice. It is loud and it is clear. It's stronger than your fear. It's believing you belong and calling out the wrong. From the mouths of our mothers to the lips of our daughters, we can dream like our brothers, speaking loud for our fathers. We can heal. Can you hear us? Can you hear us now? I have a voice. Started out as a whisper, turned into a scream, made a beautiful noise, shoulder to shoulder, marching in the street. When you're all alone, it's a quiet breeze, but when you band together, it's a choir, thunder and rain. Now we have a choice, 'cause I have a voice. Now we have a choice, 'cause I have a voice.
I'm going to ask Miss Martha Jenkins to come forward and extinguish our chalice for us as we complete our time together listening again to engaged Buddhist Thich Nhat Hanh. Sometimes we destroy our happiness just because we are not mindful in saying things. Saying things is an art. To use our speech is to build up more understanding and mutual acceptance, and we should be very artful and mindful when speaking. Words can build up a lot of happiness, but they can also destroy. Practicing right speech, loving speech, is very important in our lives, and we have to learn a lot about the art of speaking.
Listening is a moral act. It's a good. And it's a spiritual act, however we understand that word. It's transformational. It can be very hard work. But it can also be beautiful. The practice of listening to prepare for that hard moral work, that transformational work, can be a joy. For just one more moment, listen with me to the beauty of this space. The deep and joyful and beautiful practice of tuning in to all that life can be and our place in it. We are part of the symphony of this world. And it can be joy.
We have spent time together in these holy moments. Give us strength to go down the winding road until we meet again. We have spent time together in these holy moments. Give us strength to go down the